Part 1. The Forbidden Stars. Close your eyes for just a moment and picture this with me. You walk into a great cathedral, the kind that makes your chest rise before you even know why. Sunlight streams through tall stained glass windows, but instead of only saints and crosses, you see the Zodiac, Leo's lion, Scorpio's scorpion, Pisces fish, all glowing in colored light across the floor. Imagine the priest stepping forward not only with scripture, but with a chart of the heavens, telling you that your birth carried both divine mystery and cosmic design. Now, let's pause. That's not the Christianity most of us know. The faith we inherited often turned its back on astrology, condemning it as dangerous, even heretical. But what if that ban had never happened? What if the stars were never silenced, never stripped from the ceiling of faith? This isn't just an abstract question. It's about power, imagination, and the way we understand ourselves. Astrology offers direct access to meaning, something Leo energy knows well. It says you don't need permission to shine, you already carry the light. So today, we're going to explore a world that could have been, and in doing so, discover what it means for us now. Shall we step further in? Part 2. Historical Turning Point, When the Stars Went Dark. To understand what was lost, we need to step back into those first few centuries after Christ. The world was already alive with astrology. Roman emperors consulted their charts before battles. Farmers planted by the moon. Ordinary families watched the heavens as faithfully as they said their prayers. Even some early Christians were curious about how the stars might align with the will of God. But then came the turning point. Leaders like Saint Augustine, one of the most influential voices of the early church, declared astrology a danger. He feared it threatened the idea of free will, that people might blame the planets for their sins instead of taking responsibility. Over time, councils and bishops echoed his warnings, and what was once common practice became forbidden. Astrology didn't vanish, but it slipped underground, whispered in secret instead of celebrated in sanctuaries. Think of it this way, it was like taking a brilliant light and throwing a heavy cloth over it. The glow didn't disappear, but it dimmed for centuries. And for those of us who carry Leo's fire, you know what it feels like when your radiance is asked to shrink. So why was astrology such a threat? That's where we'll go next. Part 3. Why astrology threatened the church. So why did the church work so hard to silence astrology? The answer isn't only about belief, it's about power. Astrology gave people a direct line to the heavens. You didn't need a priest or bishop to interpret the movements of the stars. You could look up, trace the constellations, and feel that the universe itself was speaking to you. For a church still building authority, that was unsettling. Think about it. If the planets could reveal destiny, then clergy might lose their role as the sole keepers of divine truth. Astrology suggested that every birth chart carried wisdom, that the cosmos wrote a story for each individual. That story gave people agency, dignity, even a sense of royal importance. And when you give ordinary people too much light, those who hold power often grow nervous. Of course, there was also the debate between fate and free will. If the stars ruled everything, where did human choice and Christian salvation fit in? The church feared chaos if people leaned too much on the planets. For Leos especially, this tension feels familiar. You know your light is undeniable, but not everyone is ready to see it. Which leads us to an even bigger question. What if Christianity had embraced that light instead of hiding it? Part 4. The world that might have been, Christian rituals rewritten. Now let's play with imagination. What if the church had embraced astrology instead of rejecting it? Picture this. You walk into a baptism, and alongside the holy water, the priest opens a chart of the newborn's stars. The ceremony isn't just about cleansing sin, it's about naming the cosmic gifts this child was born with. Maybe a Leo child would be blessed as a natural leader, their fire seen as divine design, not pride to be tamed. Or think about weddings. Instead of warning couples about temptation, the priest might have pointed to the alignment of Venus and Jupiter, declaring that love itself was written in the sky. Even sermons could have followed the planets, with preachers saying, "This week Mars stirs courage, so let us speak boldly." The entire calendar of faith might have pulsed with cosmic rhythm, blending scripture with the stars. It's not a far-fetched fantasy. Traces of zodiac mosaics and star maps were once carved into cathedral floors before being erased. The universe was already painted into the walls, it just wasn't allowed to stay. And that brings us to a deeper question. How might theology itself have shifted if the stars were never silenced? Part 5. Theology reimagined. If rituals could have carried the stars, theology itself would have looked very different. Imagine how Christian teaching might have unfolded if astrology wasn't painted as the enemy, but as a partner. Instead of sin being defined purely as moral failure, it might have been understood as imbalance, a distortion of the cosmic harmony you were born with. Forgiveness, then, wouldn't just be about wiping away guilt but about restoring your alignment with divine order. Like tuning an instrument back to pitch, grace could have been seen as the gentle hand of the cosmos, helping you realign when life's patterns went crooked. Fate and providence might not have been treated as rivals, but as threads woven together, your chart showing possibilities, and your choices shaping how those possibilities unfolded. And think about pride, Leo's eternal theme. Instead of being treated as a deadly sin to crush, it might have been reframed as the solar fire you carry, a gift meant to be cultivated wisely. In this alternate world, your light wouldn't need dimming, it would need guiding. But theology is never just abstract. It always circles back to the big human question: do we choose our lives? Or are they chosen for us? That's where the debate on free will enters the stage. Part 6. Philosophy and free will. This is where the heart of the debate beats strongest: free will versus fate. Christianity built itself on the belief that every soul chooses between good and evil, heaven and hell. Astrology, on the other hand, spoke of patterns, cycles, and tendencies written in the sky. To some church leaders, those two ideas clashed like thunder. But what if they had been woven together instead? Imagine a theology that taught, yes, the stars sketch the outline of your story, but your choices color it in. The planets might suggest your strengths and struggles, yet your free will decides whether you rise with them or stumble beneath them. That kind of teaching could have given people a profound sense of both responsibility and belonging, part of a cosmic design, yet still free to shape their destiny. In fact, philosophers like Boethius and Aquinas wrestled with these very questions. If astrology had stayed in the church, their writings might have read less like warnings and more like roadmaps for living in harmony with the heavens. For Leos, this would feel natural. You know your light is destined, but you also know it's your choice how brightly to let it shine. So what if Christianity had taken this road? To answer that, we can look at other religions that never turned their backs on the stars. Part 7. Comparative religions, the road not taken. To see what might have been, we only need to look sideways at other faiths. In Islam's golden age, astrologers worked in the great libraries of Baghdad, charting the heavens to guide medicine, agriculture, even politics. In Hinduism, astrology, Jyotish, has been woven into the fabric of life for thousands of years. Weddings, business ventures, even naming a child often follow the rhythms of the stars. These traditions never saw astrology as a rival to faith, but as an extension of it. Now imagine if Christianity had taken a similar path. Picture popes consulting astrologers before calling a crusade, or priests using the position of the moon to time Easter instead of endless calendar debates. Kings and queens could have been crowned under skies declared auspicious, their reigns seen not only as political but as cosmically ordained. What's striking here is that other religions managed to balance faith and astrology without losing their sense of devotion. For Christians, this road not taken meant losing a layer of richness, a language that connected heaven to earth in ways both mystical and practical. And when that language was silenced, something else was lost too, the art and imagination that once carried the stars. That's where we turn next. Part 8. The cultural arts we lost. When astrology was pushed out of Christian life, it wasn't just theology that changed, it was art, imagination, and beauty itself. Walk into some of Europe's oldest cathedrals and you can still find traces of zodiac symbols hidden in corners of stone carvings or worn away in faded mosaics. They were once bolder, painted on ceilings and worked into stained glass, before many were scraped off or replaced with safer images. Writers, too, carried this cosmic language in secret. Dante mapped the heavens in the Divine Comedy. Chaucer filled the Canterbury Tales with astrological timing. Even Shakespeare sprinkled star talk through his plays. But because of the ban, these artists often cloaked astrology in metaphor, letting it live in poetry instead of pulpits. Imagine if that suppression had never happened. Our libraries might be filled with theological commentaries on Saturn's lessons or Venus's blessings. Our cathedrals might glow with zodiac wheels above the altars, teaching villagers their cosmic place as vividly as their catechism. When the stars were silenced, a part of the Western imagination dimmed. And yet, as we'll see, astrology never fully disappeared, it slipped into the modern world, waiting for its chance to rise again. Part 9. Modern Reflection, Christianity and Astrology Today. Even though the Church tried to silence astrology, the stars never truly vanished from people's lives. You can see it today, millions of people, some deeply Christian, quietly read their horoscopes or study birth charts while keeping a Bible on the same nightstand. It's almost as if the soul remembers what history tried to erase. In fact, the recent surge of astrology in the West shows how hungry people are for a language that blends the cosmic with the personal. We want guidance that feels both mystical and practical, and while some pastors still warn against it, many believers are finding ways to reconcile the two, seeing astrology not as a replacement for faith, but as another path toward understanding divine order. For Leos especially, this resonates deeply. You were born to shine. To feel that your life carries a story written in light. In another timeline, you might have walked into a church where your chart was honored as part of your spiritual path. But even now, in this year of triumph 2025, the chosen ones among you can reclaim that birthright, to stand tall in both faith and stars. Which brings us to a final thought. What does it mean to restore the cosmic stage today? Part 10. Conclusion, Restoring the Cosmic Stage. So here we are, standing at the edge of a question that is really more than history, it's about possibility. If Christianity had never banned astrology, faith might have looked brighter, more imaginative, more connected to the rhythms of the heavens. But even though that path was closed, the longing for it never died. You and I can feel it when we look up at the night sky. Sensing that those lights are more than decoration, they are part of our story. Maybe restoring the cosmic stage isn't about rewriting the past, but about reclaiming what was always ours. Astrology doesn't have to compete with faith, it can expand it. It can remind us that our lives are not accidents, but threads woven into a vast and meaningful design. And for you, Leo, this is especially powerful. The sun is your ruler. And no matter how many centuries tried to cover its brilliance, it has never stopped shining. You are meant to live in that light, bold, radiant, unapologetic. So as you step forward into this year of triumph 2025, ask yourself, how will you honor both your faith and your stars? Because the stage is waiting, and it was built for you.